Hello and welcome to Anatomy and Physiology at Glen Oaks Community College. I'm Dr. Ren Hartung. For this video, we're going to look at the parts of the female reproductive system. This model is one of our models of the female reproductive system. It's kind of funny, I realized that was upside down. Let's go through the basic parts without this section on right now. The ovaries. Down in here in kind of yellow is the right ovary. And the left ovary is on this other part here. That yellow is the left ovary. The ovarian ligament connects the ovary to the uterus. This is the uterus. This, therefore, is the ovarian ligament. The broad ligament on this part of the model has been cut. See how this has been cut away? That would be the broad ligament. So the broad ligament in here is kind of down in this neighborhood, this connective tissue that connects the uterus to the pelvic wall. The uterine tubes, here they start in red, and these are the fimbriae at the end of the uterine tube. This is the uterine tube coming down and connecting to the uterus. Uterine tubes are also known as uterine horns. So on this model, this would be the left uterine tube or left uterine horn, and then in here would be the right uterine tube or right uterine horn. This, of course, is the uterus. The uterus has three major layers. The innermost layer is called the endometrium, and this is the one that gets renewed every month in the normal menstrual cycle. The middle layer is the myometrium, and it's made mostly of smooth muscle. And then the outside layer is called the perimetrium. The fundus of the uterus is the top of the uterus, here, and on this side here. The body of the uterus is basically almost all the rest of it, the whole big body of the uterus. The cervix of the uterus is the opening of the uterus into the vagina. So this is the cervix here. The vagina is a fibromuscular tube that leads to the outside of the body. And then we have erectile tissues in the female. First, the clitoris is here. And if I bring up this part of it, the clitoris is seen on the surface as this kind of little button. But the erectile tissues of the clitoris extend back on either side of the labias. And there's another erectile tissue here, which is called the vestibular bulb. Behind the vestibular bulb is the greater vestibular gland. And this produces lubricating substance for intercourse. The labia minora is the inner set of lips. The labia majora is the outer set of lips. And I think that pretty much is everything on the female pelvis model. Urinary structures, I'll point out. This is the female urethra. And you may note that the urethra lies between the clitoris, or the top of the vulva. This whole region inside of the labia minora is called the vulva. So the clitoris lies at the top of the vulva. Then we have urethra, and then we have vagina. So the urethra is between the vagina and the clitoris. The urinary bladder in the female is up here, and of course the uterus lies on top of the urinary bladder. So when a lady's pregnant, there's usually more pressure on the bladder. And then other urinary structures on this model. This is the ureter coming down. And if we follow that ureter up, we'll see the bottom of a kidney. That's the right kidney. Other structures, as long as we're here for digestive system, this is the end of the large intestine. This would be part of the sigmoid colon. And if we keep coming down, we're in rectum. And then finally anal canal. And the orifice on the outside would be the anus. I think those are all the major structures I can show you for urinary and reproductive and a bit of digestive in the female pelvis model. Thank you again for watching.
So when you're talking about the female reproductive anatomy, I like to go from superficial to deep as we talked about the different structures. So the first structure you're going to see as you go through the female anatomy is going to be the vagina, which is going to be the opening into the reproductive tract. The vagina is going to be different in length. This one's extremely larger one. But as you get down to the vagina, you're going to see a muscular sac right here. That's going to be your cervix. On this example, on this model, you're also seeing the cervix here. So the cervix has an opening called the os, and the opening is going to go from the opening of the vagina into the uterus. Now the uterus is the largest portion, smooth muscle of the reproductive tract. It's where the developing embryo is going to embed and going to grow and develop until it becomes a fetus. And that's going to be your large uterus right through here. It's large and it's very muscular, and it's going to grow as the baby grows until it becomes all the way up into the navel area or above the navel area in women. Next to the opening of the uterus is going to be these fallopian tubes or uterine tubes. This side and on this side. This one's split open. So the uterine tubes are going to wrap around the round, and they're going to be right next to the ovary. And here we're seeing the ovary in this one, number 17. The uterine tube ends with these little finger-like projections, or fimbriae, which move back and forth to sweep the egg as it's coming from the embryo, as it's coming from the ovary, down into the uterine tubes, and from there. So when you're talking about fertilization, as the sperm is going through the uterus, it's going to fertilize somewhere around in the uterine tube, and then from there go and implant itself into the uterine wall. So let's sum up. You have the vagina, cervix, uterus, uterine tube, ovary, fimbriae, and all of this has to be connected to each other through ligaments. The uterus is not just fluid space, the ovary is not just loose in the pelvic cavity, but you're going to be held together by these ligaments. This is going to be called the broad ligament. So that's your broad ligament over through there. All of these is fed by by different degrees of vasculature. Okay. One of the things you know first off between the male and female anatomy is that the male anatomy has much more of an external genitalia than the female. One thing you're going to see here is going to be your penis, including a shaft and glands, and then your scrotum, which contains your testicles and epididymis. So let's talk about the penis first off. The outermost portion of the penis is going to be the glands, and most of the shaft is going to be made of this spongy urethra coming through here. Spongy urethra is going to be connected to the bladder. So that's the shaft of the penis there. We can see another section over on this one. On this cross section, you're seeing the glands of the penis, shaft with the spongy urethra. The spongy urethra is going to join past the pelvic diaphragm and join with the prostate as well as parts of the bladder. So let's go ahead and now trace the formation of sperm production. So sperm is first formed in the testicles. That's where they're first created. If during the epididymis, which you see here, that's going to be where the sperm are condensed, their nuclei are condensed, they become fully mobile with flagella, and then once they get past the epididymis, then they can go up to this tube or the ductus deferens through this what's called the spermatic cord. And the spermatic cord is going to go up and it's going to go around the pelvic brim between the abdominal muscles go around the bladder past the ureter before joining with the prostate. Let's take a look at the internal anatomy a little bit more. So again, here was your ductus deferens. This was your ureter. It's going around. So this right here was going to be your sperm production is just only part of what is ejaculated during sexual intercourse. The other part is going to be, the rest of it's going to be your semen. So part of it's going to be between your sperm is going to be coming from your ductus deferens, but a lot of the fluid and the nutrients that the sperm need to get through the reproductive cycle is produced largely from this gland called the seminal vesicle, and then also here from the prostate. So your seminal vesicle is going to produce a lot of the nutrients such as fructose and produce a lot more fluid for the sperm to survive, and your prostate is where the ductus deferens is going to dump into. Let's look at this in cross section. So we remove the seminal vesicle. Here was your bladder. Here in the red was going to be your prostate. You're seeing the ductus deferens pass into the prostate and join with this part of the urethra, joining together to become part of the reproductive system there. Let's take a look at another model to show you what it looks like in cross section. So over here we had the glands of the penis, the spongy urethra, and this was our bladder. Coming on this side, we're seeing the seminal vesicles, which are going to join fluid into with the prostate. So the prostate being here. All these ones. Let's go ahead and do it all once more. So, glands of the penis, shaft of the penis, spongy urethra, other external genitalia, your testicle, epididymis, ductus deferens, which curves around, seminal vesicle, producing the most of the fluid of the semen, prostate, bladder, ductus deferens going down into the prostate.